Hello, this is again a tough video. This time it's kind of more ad hoc. And now the reason for this is that I was researching, what we can do and with a crowd and in democracy and so on. So the title of this talk is Democracy and the Machiavellian Crowd, because the solution to my research comes from the novel The Prince, Il Principe, from Machiavelli. And to kind of set this as a plot, I can refer a little bit to, I think it was the first video 1 and video 2, where I show the Corona game. And I say how it's played and who are the participants. Now, when you look at Machiavelli, you actually have much fewer players, maybe, or groups of players, let's put it that way. So you have the people in power. So that is the prince, prince, and maybe there are several, each one of them plays this game. So I would say this is like people in power, so these ones have the power, and then they have allies, allies, these guys support them. And then there is one thing, how do I draw it? Maybe in blue. There is kind of, this is the level of power they have, those allies have. Very powerful, when they are kind of in this realm, then these ones and so on. And then, we come into the crowd, and this is the crowd. Yeah, so this is the population. And so some allies are actually part of the crowd. So they're relatively weak, and then you might have doctors, you might have politicians, you might have industrial leaders, you might have judges, you might have journalists. So they all are here in a kind of a power range. And then obviously you have, I'm a little bit biased, so I draw them in green. You have here the enemies. Yeah, the Principe is the, and the enemies of him. And also here, there is this this power thing. So some are relatively powerful. In general, they will not make part of this here, or only kind of if it serves them to kill those guys. But in general, these enemies will not make part of the people in power. So you will have different levels of power here. So these are actually the 4 players: Principe, the allies, the enemies, and the crowd. And now this is, if I now take kind of the, let's say, 5 takeaways from the Machiavellian novel, The Prince, there is one thing to say, and that is very, very important. And this is this, like, good people always think everything, I draw it in red. It is what ought to be, is not what is. So the good people say, oh, we want love. We want love. We want, we love and happy people. That's what we want, But reality is usually something similar. It's, something, some fights and some love and so on. So that is reality. And that is what these people that think in the good think that should be. So they want this. But in reality, it is like that. And that is what Machiavelli kind of had as the initial thing. That is one of the maybe biggest errors there is. This is kind of this wishful thinking. Now, there is one thing, the first now is dishonesty wins over honesty. Not always, but in most cases. And that is kind of, I put it as number 2, because this here is number 1. So dishonesty wins over honesty. So that is kind of what Machiavelli claims. And then the third thing is about the crowd. And he says the vulgar crowd is taken by appearance. So they look at what somebody gives them to believe there is by appearance. So there is a nice cloud, there is a nice castle, there's fun things, you know, a theme park and so on. That is what the appearance, that is where they go. And so the journalists, they say, look, guys, it's there. And so they think, oh, this is great. So the crowd, the vulgar crowd is taken by, I put it, appearance. Yeah, so they are easily fooled. And then there is one other thing, and that is, I like that actually a lot, and that is you either treat someone well or you crush him. So that means these guys decide between, like a binary thing. Now it's binary. It's 1 or 0. So it's kill or love. Yeah, that's what they do. I don't know, 0 is kill and 0 is love. So it's a binary thing. So what they will do is crush them. Don't give them, you know, a little bit of time with a journalist. Don't give them a little bit time on TV. Don't give them a little, no, crush them, crush them, crush them. Delete them, censor them, and so on. So crush them. And then say to those guys, these are, wow, fantastic. They will love them, and so on. So that's that. So raise them, you know, raise them into the heaven and kill those. And then the interesting thing now is that is what we always also see is the prince should never do the tasks that are difficult. So please, so that is the clever trick. Put it in blue. So the prince gives the hard, I put that like this, the hard tasks always to the allies. So maybe to the politicians, maybe to some doctors. Never do those yourself. So what the prince has to do, it has to say, I'm the, you know, salvation comes from me. So there's the syringe, so the medical, the drug, you know, the food, the money, you know, that comes from him. That is actually the salvation comes from him. Whereas the bad things, they are being, or the difficult things, not the bad things, but the difficult things, the tricky things are being done by those guys. And the reason for that is that if something goes wrong, then you can immediately say he's wrong and put him here in the enemy thing and say, oh, I didn't want to do that. He did it. I wanted the nice thing because I'm the good guy. And so that is a very, very good kind of fifth, I think that is the fifth, number 5 a trick you can use. So number four was you either love or crush. Yeah. So when you then go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have the Corona game. And when I did those videos 4 weeks ago, I actually didn't remember this in that I can apply actually the Machiavellian kind of wisdom to this Corona game. And so I was really shocked, positively shocked, that this is actually the solution to what I was looking for. I did some research, maybe an hour or two, and I thought, how can I explain that? And I found this book, The Prince, and thought, wow, there it is. There, fantastic. So comments are most welcome. Happy to share this and talk to you next time. Bye-bye.